Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Maximilian College Basketball Conference Tournament previews. And for today, we will be going over picks and analysis for the Coastal Athletic Conference and the Southern Conference. And yes, we have a very special guest, as you saw on your screen, one of the sharpest minds in college basketball, and a great guest to bring on, to talk about futures, because you might have seen. 3-point Sniper had a nice future last season on Florida. What was that, like 60-1? I think it was
61. Yeah.
Yes, awesome.
So that was best,
that was a huge ticket. So I mean, bringing you on the talk futures, I think, is a good idea. And this was not planned. We both are repping Charleston here as we talk about the CAA. And another reason why I brought you on is this is pretty local to you, right? You got good regionality here.
Yeah, correct. I'm actually down here in Charleston, so I frequent TD Arena and watch the Cougs as much as I can. It's a fun atmosphere for mid-major basketball down there.
Yep, and then your coach is my former coach. I'm a Xavier guy. So
That's correct. Yeah.
So, anyways, here, so we will be talking about the CAA first, but actually, before we start, I do have to mention somebody tweeted last week. I don't know if you saw this. They thought. They tried to start maybe a rumor that I was 3-point Sniper.
I saw that. We're the same person.
Yeah, because we always have similar plays, which I like because I mean we've both been doing very well this season. But yeah, I thought this confirms it now that you can see us on screen here separate. So
that was hilarious.
Yeah, but let's go ahead. Let's start with the bracket here. We're starting with the CAA first, and these are all neutral site games. We got one little play in between NCAT and Northeastern, and then the first round gets started there on March 7th. So let's go ahead. Let's start with, did anything jump out to you? I know the first thing I noticed was I thought UNC Wilmington here got a good draw because of their 3 losses. They all came to teams on the other side of the bracket. And William and Mary was one of the teams that they lost to twice. So their 15-3 record, they've taken care of business of their side of the bracket. Did anything else stand out to you in this one?
No, yeah, that was the major piece that stuck out to me from the beginning. Is the bottom half of this bracket is a gauntlet. Like you said, William and Mary knocked off UNCW both times this year. They play super fast. I think they're up to 5th in adjusted tempo in KenPom and maybe 1st in average possession length. So it's up and down. It's really given Wilmington fits. And, you see Hofstra down there at the bottom. KenPom, that's the highest rated KenPom team in the league, I believe. I could be wrong on that. But, they have Cruz Davis. Their analytics are great. And they could be facing a first-round game for them in the quarters against a team like William and Mary who – I mean, it's such a weird play style. I mean, they could slip up. I don't see it happening, but that's a tough matchup for them. And then you go and look at Charleston, who gets the 2 seed here, and their draw is likely going to be 7 seed Towson, who's been their, outside of Wilmington, one of their big conference rivals over the last few years with a great coach. And, they have the players. You and I have been on Towson many a times this year, and we're like, when are they going to figure it out? And they just can't shoot the ball this year for whatever reason. Tejada and Williamson are just off, but that team can rebound. They play tough defense. So the bottom of this bracket is really tough.
Yeah, I think it will be a gauntlet. And that would be very poetic because, like you said, this Towson team, I've been betting them all year. I've been waiting for it, and it just hasn't happened. So I kind of bailed on it. But, it'd be very poetic for them to figure it out here. So that sounds like Towson might be your dark horse then in the first round there. I want to avoid the top 4 seeds, which team can maybe go on a little run. Would you take Towson then?
I would. That would be the team. Unfortunately, against Charleston, I mean, I'm partial to the Cougs, but I think that we would be surprised at how close that game will be because I think Pat Scarry is going to get this team up. And, if this team does somehow figure out their shot and they start shooting better, new gym, get comfortable with it, I mean, this team could be good because they're still defending. They're still hitting the offensive glass. They're still blocking shots. It's just they literally can't make a shot. So if that falls into place, it could be a team that could make a run here.
Yep, that was one of the teams I had circled. The other one I'm going to make a case for is I think Campbell maybe could go on a run. They're playing much better. They ended 5-4 in the regular season, but the 4 games that they lost were all very close and to good teams, including
Yeah,
this Wilmington team who they would play if they happen to get by Stoney. Both of those games, I know they lost, but they took Wilmington down to the wire.
it
So
sure did.
if Campbell can maybe get a little lucky down the stretch this time, I think they could maybe be a dark horse. But let's go ahead. Let's take a look at the odds. And like you said, Hofstra is actually the top rated KenPom team, and that is reflected here in the odds. Despite being the 3 seed, they are the betting favorite at plus 195. So that's for sure something that stood out. But what I like to do is I like to draw my line about teams that can realistically win this tournament. And like I mentioned, I think Campbell is as far down as I would go. Could you make the case for anyone else, maybe Stony Brook, or were you looking?
Yeah, no, I'm out on Stony Brook, man. That team just doesn't do it for me, and it's a bloodbath analytically for them. So I couldn't go that far. I think my personal lowest would be Towson. Just everything that we've been saying from this point on. But like you said, like it's tough for me because Hofstra is my favorite team in the league this year. But at 195 with all the teams that are down there, I don't know if I'll be touching that.
Yep, and that's a great lead away here because that is my strategy here. So we're going to go ahead. We each get 1 unit here to allocate on this conference, and I've got half units, and I'm taking 2 teams. And the first one I'm going with actually is Charleston at plus 500 for half a unit. I just don't think there's a ton of separation between them, Wilmington, and Hofstra. Yeah, I know. Let's roll it. Like I said, I just don't think there's a ton of separation here. I know Hofstra's rated as the top one, but that's a big difference here between plus 195 and plus 500. And Charleston, they've had some bad luck this year. They were injured early on the non-con, and then they've been back and forth with the Hickman status, but they finally got that all figured out. And in the last 5 games, it's been reflected in that they won all 5 of them, and they're about 10 points better per 100 possessions in those last 5 games compared to the rest of their conference play. So I am going to go ahead and take Charleston plus 500 for half a unit. And why don't we'll kick it back to you? What are you taking in this one?
Yeah, so I am going to step out on the ledge a little bit and back Towson, like I've been talking about the whole preview, but only for a quarter of a unit. And then I'll put my remaining allocation on UNC Dub, just simply because I think the top of that bracket is easily gettable for them. I would be stunned if they weren't in the title game. So if I have Wilmington at plus 260 in the title game versus, whoever makes it through, that's likely going to be, great odds in the title game, obviously. So.
Yep, and that was my same thoughts exactly. That's why for my other half unit, I did go Wilmington plus 260. Not a lot of separation between those teams at the top, and I do think they got the better draw. I think the top half is weaker, and they're very disciplined. The reason why they won 15 games and got the 1 seed, I know analytically they might be like the 3rd offense and 3rd defense, but they're the best at taking care of the ball, and they're the best at defensive rebounding. So they just don't shoot themselves in the foot. They don't give you extra opportunities. And that's what Hofstra does. They grab a bunch of offensive rebounds. So
that's right.
That's why Wilmington won that lone matchup in the regular season. So I think that's a little disrespectful here to the 1 seed. So for a half unit, I did go plus 260 on Wilmington and plus 500 on Charleston. And then for 3-point sniper, again, he had just a quarter unit on Towson as his dark horse to make a run here and put the rest on Wilmington as well. So like to see that we're a little aligned here. I think, though, jumping in to the next one, we might not be as aligned. I don't know, because this one, I don't know what your first thought of the bracket was, but mine was this thing is wide open. Maybe not Chattanooga, Citadel, or Greensboro, or VMI, the first games we have on Friday, but when those Saturday matchups start, I mean, I think any one of these teams can make it. And the 6th seed Furman is actually the 2nd betting favorite on the board, getting a lot of respect for Furman. What do you make of that?
Yeah, so you got the lurking giant in Furman down there with Bob Ritchie at the helm. I mean, that's It's kind of crazy that for a lot of the season, I think it still is, Ken Palm has had the SoCon rated well below what they've been in recent years. But then you look and you see there's a competitive Furman team all the way down to 6th seed. It was just crazy to see when I first pulled up the bracket because I didn't have that in my mind. But like you said, this thing is wide open. So I'm sure we'll get into it. There's a lot of different points to make for all of these teams outside of, Citadel and Chat and VMI, but I think it's going to be a very fun tournament as always.
Yeah, and like you said, VMI, Citadel, they're 500, 900, one for a reason. If you would like to bet those, you can call me, text me. I will gladly book those and take your money if you're gonna give me free dollars. But outside of those two, I'd be surprised if Greensboro won. Chattanooga, I've been a little disappointed in. I thought they were solid coming into the year. Dan Earl, good coach, but like you said, the new era of basketball is tough on some of these teams, and Chattanooga was one that kind of got picked apart. You look at Hunter Huff over at West Virginia and stuff, so kind of tough for them to follow it up. But I do think where I drew my line here was at Western Carolina, and I think this team actually does have a legit chance. They ended super hot the conference play. They won 6 games, including Mercer to finish, which is who they would play in the first round. And then if they were to get past Mercer, they would have East Tennessee State, who they've already beat twice in the regular season. So that could be a fascinating matchup if they were able to get through to that one.
And that's an ETSU team that's kind of stumbling a tad coming into this tournament. They've lost 3 out of 5, I think. So, it's like you've been talking about on your account over the last few days, the teams that are trending up and the teams that are trending down. Western Carolina's hot right now and ETSU's struggling. So I think that's a good spot to look at.
Yeah. So I am going to go ahead. I'll start us off here. And I actually have 3 plays. I broke my unit up 3 ways because, like I said, I think all the teams on the left have a chance to win. And I think Western Carolina has a legit chance to win too. And so I am going to go ahead and start. I'm going to, like I mentioned earlier, a quarter unit here on Western Carolina. I talked about it a little before about how they're trending up. And I really like the fact that they've beat East Tennessee State already. So they've proven that they can hang with them. And I love the fact that this is the best rebounding team in the conference, great offensive rebounding team. And the fact that the offense has been coming along lately, I think that rebounding as well will help them. So just a quarter unit here on 10-1 for my first play. But 3-point sniper, how many plays do you have for this one?
So I'm actually going to shock you at this. I've only got 1 play, and it's a full unit on a team.
All right,
let's do it. It's going to be Samford, the other hottest team in the league outside of Western Carolina. So, my theory in going with Samford here for my pick for the SoCon is, they're red hot. They've won 8 out of 9. They're coming off of a Max. I've got to vent on this for a little bit. Did you see my Samford best bet over the weekend that lost?
Okay. I saw not your tweet. I knew you were on it. I never saw exactly what happened, but I saw it was on a bad beats thing, but I didn't look at it. Remind me, though, what happened. I saw it was horrible.
Up 17 points with 55 seconds left and didn't cover the 9.5.
Yep.
Absolutely brutal. But anyways, I've flushed it, and I'm here to back this team again. In that game, actually, Jaden Booth hit a school record 11 threes. And this team is just shooting the lights out right now. And another reason why I'm going to Samford in this spot in the bracket is because due to the tiebreakers, Wofford is actually the 2 seed. And that's way too high of a seed for Wofford. This is a first year for Kevin Giltner. He's from the Mike Young coaching tree, Wofford alum. So he came back. He's doing an excellent job with this roster because it was in turmoil after the late coaching change in the offseason. Not a lot of NIL to work with this year. So great coaching job by him. I just don't think they have the talent to run a gauntlet of the SoCon tournament. So that team being the 2 seed down there with Samford, I like a lot. And then when you look at Samford's matchup with Furman, they've actually lost 2 very close games to the Paladins this year. but I like the way they match up with them. And, I went and checked with our friends over at Shot Quality, and it was actually graded as 2 shot quality wins for Samford. So this team's red hot. They can shoot the ball. Good vibes coming to the tournament. Like I said, 2 close losses to Furman, and I think they probably should have won at least one of those games. So I think it's going to be a good fight. And then they have that matchup where, I wouldn't even be surprised if UNCG, a good coach with Mike Jones, but a horrible year, I wouldn't be surprised if they picked off Wofford in this tournament. And so then you're looking at, either Wofford or UNCG in the semis. I love Samford's chances there. And then you got a plus 500 ticket in the title game. So that's where I'm at for the SoCon.
I'm glad you mentioned the shot quality aspect of Samford, because my Discord has been giving me shit all year because I've been backing Samford all year. And I said, guys, this team is good. I promise. Guys, they're expected to be doing better. And finally, we are seeing that progression here. Like you said, they finished super strong. I memean, flashback to January 21st. They lost to Wofford to move to 2-5 in conference play. And then they end the year 9-2. They're playing their best ball. And this is actually going to be did I say I have 3 plays? I got that wrong. I have 2. It's Samford was the other one.
Let's go.
0.75 units. Yeah, that was we didn't talk about these before, but
hey, guys, I promise. Yeah, we have not conversed about any of this before this video. So this is awesome.
But no, I mean, like you said, they're playing their best ball right now. I love their coach, Lenny Acuff. He comes in from Lipscomb to follow after Buckyball. And yeah, he did a great job at Lipscomb. It was just, it's year 1. There were some growing pains, but right now they've got it figured out. They're the number 1 team in offensive turnover rate and defensive rebound rate in this conference. So you just don't get extra chances against this team, and that's what they want. They're also going to shoot a bunch of threes, and they're not going to let you shoot threes, and they are the best shooting team in this conference, sitting at 38% from deep. So for my 0.75 units, I'm taking Samford as well here. I think this Furman line, they're just getting too much respect for what they've been as a program.
It's the logo. Correct.
Yeah, it's the logo, And ETSU, I think they're getting too much love at plus 185. Like you said, they didn't finish strong. They played a lot of close games too, but yeah, they just couldn't put the conference really away down the stretch maybe as quickly as they wanted to. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and take Samford for my last play. So I like that we're on the same side.
That price for them is surprisingly low with how both of us view this conference tournament could get a little crazy. I could not believe that those odds were that short, and I definitely want no part of that.
Yep. So there's one last look at the bracket. But yeah, so I'm going just to recap here, Samford, and then a little sprinkle on Western Carolina, and 3-point sniper, full unit on Samford. So clearly our confidence lies there. But hey, man, thanks for hanging out with me, talking to these conferences. I know you're very close to these. You pay attention. I mean, you're very close to the sport in general. You're doing great right now. I saw you had a great night last night, and yeah, things are heating up. It's the best time of the year. It's March, baby. Thanks for hanging out.
Dude, thank you so much for having me on. This was a blast, and hopefully we can bring these home.
Yep, let's go Samford. And that will do it for today's episode. Thanks so much for watching, and go ahead, like, subscribe, and check out the other conference previews up on my channel. Best of luck.